I survived communism. Are you ready for your turn? www.spencerfernando.com. 14 minutes read. It was scientifically proven that communism is the only social economic system providing the masses with justice and equality. 100% of scientists agree on this. The topic is not up for debate, so proclaimed my professor during one of his lectures on the subject, Scientific Communism, while the country of Czechoslovakia was still under communist control. I was reminded of his blustery pronouncement the first time I encountered the spurious claim that a consensus of 97% of scientists agree global warming is man-made. Most people don't question scientific statements because they think they are facts. They do not understand that scientific statements must always be challenged, because science is not about consensus, ideology is. In March of 2007, the website WorldNet Daily published an article entitled, "Environmentalism is New Communism." In it, the former Czech president, Václav Klaus, stated, "It becomes evident that, while discussing climate, we are not witnessing a clash of views about the environment, but a clash of views about human freedom." He goes on to describe environmentalism as the biggest threat to freedom, democracy, the market economy, and prosperity. Klaus has also written a book, Blue Planet in Green Shackles, in which he states communism and environmentalism have the same roots, they both suppress freedom. He also warns that any brand of environmentalism calling for centralized planning of the economy under the slogan of protecting nature is nothing less than a reincarnation of communism, new communism. Klaus understands communist propaganda very well, he should. Most of us who lived and suffered under communism can instantly recognize any signs of communist ideology, no matter how slight or subtle. Since I received my own vaccination of communist propaganda, during the first 27 years of my life, I too am immune to this disease. If someone is trying to save me against my will, I'm instantly wary and ready to fight back. If it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's a duck. So try to imagine how I feel, now as a Canadian, when I see the same tactics and hear the same phrases I saw and heard for years under communism, only this time in English. If you think I'm paranoid, or that communism in North America is far-fetched, then good luck to you. I hope you enjoy what's coming your way. You North Americans are so gullible. No, you won't accept communism outright, but we'll keep feeding you small doses of socialism until you will finally wake up and find that you already have communism. We won't have to fight you, we'll so weaken your economy, until you fall like overripe fruit into our hands. Nikita Khrushchev, 1960. Communism can be characterized by a single word, deception. Communists never disclose their real intentions. They are fraudsters who employ different identities, names, and slogans, all for one goal, totalitarian enslavement. Since 1970, the goal of the Communist Party USA has been to subvert environmentalism and use it to advance their agenda. In 1972, Gus Hall, then chairman of the Communist Party USA, stipulated in his book Ecology, human society cannot basically stop the destruction of the environment under capitalism. Socialism is the only structure that makes it possible. This is true in the struggle to save the environment. We must be the organizers, the leaders of these movements. What is new is that knowledge of a point of no return gives this struggle an unusual urgency. This idea was incorporated into the U.S. Green Party program in 1989, the same year Soviet communism collapsed, in which the fictitious threats of global warming and climate change are used to scare the public into believing humanity must save the planet. This urgency, along with other green issues and themes it interrelates, makes confronting the greenhouse effect a powerful organizing tool. Survival is highly motivating, and may help us to build a mass movement that will lead to large-scale political and societal change in a very short time. First of all, we must inform the public that the crisis is more immediate and severe than they are being told, that its implications are too great to wait for the universal scientific confirmation that only eco-catastrophe would establish. Do you think the UN Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change is promoting science rather than socialism? Read the following admission from the co-chair of the UN IPCC Working Group 3, during an interview in 2010 with the Swiss newspaper Neue Zürcher Zeitung. We must free ourselves from the illusion that international climate policy is environmental policy. We must state clearly that we use climate policy de facto to redistribute the world's wealth. Do I have your attention? Then let me describe to you how communist propaganda and methodology work. There are three main stages. 1. Polarization, KGB term, demoralization. 2. Destabilization. 3. Revolution. Stage 1, polarization, divide and conquer. In order to win power, communists first polarize their target society. The notion of injustice is introduced. One group of people, poor workers, are made to feel victimized by a second group, to the point that they demand civil discourse. Who are these people that supposedly victimize poor workers? Here's a clue. Communists don't care about poor people, they just hate rich ones, George Orwell. The one thing a communist cannot abide is a wealthy person. For communists, the rich are owners of private businesses, especially successful ones. They are loathed and demonized as heartless, spiteful monsters who exploit their employees and don't care about their welfare. The rich are public enemy number one. They don't care about people or the environment, they care only about profit and wealth. Dare to disagree? Then you are a denier and imperialist traitor, and after completion of stage 3, you will be physically liquidated. We must hate. Hatred is the basis of communism. Children must be taught to hate their parents if they are not communists. Vladimir Ilyich Lenin. During the first stage, communists focus on altruistic people, people with big hearts, full of good intentions, who believe in doing good, for goodness sake. Why? Because idealistic people are usually naive and easy to manipulate, especially via their emotions. Recognizing how essential these people are to the success of his revolution, Lenin referred to them as useful idiots. Stage 2, destabilization. During the second stage, the basic values of society are targeted for change. This always starts with education. Give me your child for 8 years, and he or she will be a communist forever, Vladimir Ilyich Lenin. Communism always uses teachers and the education system to impose its ideology and promote its values, through indoctrination. My own indoctrination started in elementary school. In grade 4, we all had to become young pioneers. From that day, we were taught about the imminent danger posed by capitalistic countries. The curriculum in school gradually but firmly established admiration for communism and loyalty to the Communist Party. We were constantly reminded of how we live in the best political system in the world, the country with the best social justice and equality. Our teachers participated in this process, either voluntarily or involuntarily. I remember teachers who actively reinforced communist indoctrination in schools. They exploited a child's emotional immaturity, lack of experience and knowledge vulnerability, to impose their communist ideas, beliefs, and values. They took advantage of their position of authority, of the natural trust that children place in teachers, to brainwash a young and vulnerable generation, to train the next generation of communists. Scaremongering was a favorite tactic. Embrace communism. Fear capitalism. Otherwise, your country will be overtaken by imperialists and you will be exploited. Who is not with us is against us. If you think this can't happen in Canada, then I have news for you. It's been happening for some time, in both Canada and the US. The environmental cause was targeted years ago by communists as a catalyst for promoting socialism and paving the way for communism. New communism is based on all the old communist ideological principles and beliefs, but uses environmentalism as its agent of change to completely alter the core values of Western democracy and destabilize, demoralize, society. As illustrated by the following excerpt from Captain Echo, written by Jonathan Portellus Nadler and published in 1991, children are being indoctrinated in our schools, being made to believe that it's their responsibility to save the planet. Your planet is in serious trouble, from pollution, toxic waste, and the loss of forest, farmland, and fresh water. Your parents and grandparents have made a mess of looking after the earth. They may deny it, but they are little more than thieves. And they are stealing your future from under your noses. Some more examples. In May 2012, a grade 3 class took to the streets of Toronto with signs to protest the construction of the Northern Gateway pipeline. The protest was organized by their teacher and a local community volunteer. Pure Marxist method. Just like these kids, who marched in protest to save the planet, we too were made by our teachers to march with banners and signs to save our country from imperialists. In 2011, in Laval, Quebec, a 6-year-old boy was disqualified from a teddy bear contest because a Ziploc was found in his lunch instead of a reusable container. How did this boy feel after being ostracized and excluded from his peers? Maybe he felt punished for his parents' action. What's the next step? Encourage children to report their own parents, who use Ziplocs instead of reusable containers. Denunciation is common practice during communism. In April 2018, an Edmonton father went to an elementary school to see his grade 4 daughter's play. In the play, the children sabotaged a factory, in the name of climate change, then went on to save Alberta from its evil oil industry and greedy oil barons. Textbook communist methodology, demonizing the private sector, oil industry, by representing them as greedy oil barons. In some university lecture halls, professors are also trying to indoctrinate the new upcoming proletariat. Every time I see elite university students protesting capitalism and advocating socialism, I wonder if they realize that if they succeed, it will be their very last protest. In an interview recorded in 1984, KGB defector Yuri Bezmenov described the consequences of ideological subversion, indoctrination. Here is a short excerpt. A person who is demoralized, indoctrinated, is unable to assess true information. The facts tell nothing to him, even if I shower him with information, with authentic proof, with documents, with pictures, even if I take him, by force, to the Soviet Union and show him a concentration camp. He will refuse to believe it, until he will receive a kick in his fat bottom. Yuri Bezmenov, on Useful Idiots and the True Face of Communism, https://www.youtube.com/watch?v=K4KUAJTVQ. The children currently attending our elementary schools will vote in 10 to 12 years. How many of these children are being, or have already been, brainwashed into believing that in order to save the planet, they must vote for a government that will stop destroying the planet by eliminating private ownership and taking control of production? The philosophy of the classroom in one generation will be the philosophy of government in the next. Abraham Lincoln. If you believe warm, cuddly socialism leads to utopian communism, in which equality and social justice prevail, then allow me to impart some insights about the social justice delivered to us by communists. You deserve to know a little about the substance in which you will have to swim, before you dive into the cesspool called communism. Stage 3, Revolution. After gaining the support of a majority, communists call for a democratic election. If they win it, they seize power and abolish democratic elections altogether. At this point, members of opposition parties, along with all other opponents deemed to be a potential threat, are physically liquidated. In case you aren't familiar with this quaint communist phrase, it means executed. Private businesses are immediately seized and confiscated, nationalized. Key supporters who now finally realize how they have been manipulated and exploited, i.e. useful idiots who are no longer useful, are either jailed or executed, to prevent the formation of any dissident movements. All other useful idiots, having fulfilled their purpose of bringing communists to power, are now either enslaved into the new ideology, or disposed of in a variety of prescribed ways. A new privileged elite of Communist Party leaders is now formed. No hypocrisy here. After all those angry claims of exploitation by a privileged elite, what's the first thing communists do once they gain power? Leaders of every key institution or organization, company, hospital, police, school, etc. are now replaced by an official member of the Communist Party. Competence, ability, or fitness for the job is no longer relevant or required. The only prerequisite is loyalty to the party. Economic consequences of communism. Do you think communism failed because of oppression? No. You can brainwash and threaten people, keep them dangling like puppets, until the supply of goods starts to disappear. Economic reality always prevails. The problem with socialism is that you eventually run out of others' people money. Margaret Thatcher. The economic consequences of communism are always the same: poverty, and this one comes with an ironclad guarantee, a lifetime warranty. People always spend their own money more carefully than someone else's. Capitalism is about efficiency. Private businesses must spend their capital very carefully. They cannot afford to make investments in their business unless they are sure it will be worth it. A mistake could result in an increased price for their product, reduced cash flow, loss of competitiveness, eventual bankruptcy. In a centrally planned economy, all production is controlled by government. The revenue required to operate the government and the economy is obtained through taxation. Because a centrally planned economy is not subject to the laws of supply and demand, financial goals become meaningless, since there are no penalties for not achieving them. Thus, long-term government plans are never fulfilled and financial goals are replaced by imaginary production quotas. The result is profligate waste and inefficiency on a monumental scale. Communism institutes mandatory employment with predetermined duties and salaries. The problem is lack of goods and services. Even if you have money, you will have few opportunities to spend it for your own benefit. Both socialism and communism believe in the abolishment of private business. Economic resources may be publicly owned, but they are controlled by government. Communism is implemented in two stages. During the first stage, socialism, wealth is distributed to people according to their productivity. During the second stage, communism, wealth is distributed according to individual need, but it is the government who decides what those needs are, and if they even matter, not the individual. Remember the key word, deception? Socialism equals communism. Any political party or organization that advocates socialism is advocating communism. If you think socialism cares about democracy or freedom, then reread Stage 3, Revolution, above. Life under communism. What is life under communism like? In the Eastern Bloc countries, shortages of basic goods began in the 1980s. People had to get up at 3 a.m. in order to stand in line for basic necessities: bread, milk, meat, eggs, toilet paper, oil, etc. You could stand in line for hours and not even get a chance to buy something once products ran out. Other appealing aspects. Want an apartment? You can't buy one. Real estate markets don't exist. You'll probably get one, eventually, for free, but the government will decide the size, type, location, as well as your position in the queue, which may take years. Want a car? You must first submit an application, or buy a permit, to buy a car from the government, then wait in line, for years. The wait time might be 2 to 3 years, or it could be as long as 7 to 10 years. Want to use some recreational facilities, government built, of course, for your vacation? You need to be approved by a labor union, and wait. Want daycare for your child? Submit an application, and wait. Want a garage for your car? Submit an application, and wait. I submitted an application for a garage in 1988. When I left Slovakia in 1997, I still had not received a response. Sound idyllic? But here's the best part, there's no guarantee you will ever receive an apartment, car, garage, daycare, recreation, or anything else you might want. If there is any record, ever, of your non-compliance with communist ideology, you will receive nothing. As one communist leader informed me, after I refused to become member of a socialist party, forget about an apartment, forget about daycare, forget about a salary raise, forget about any benefits. Communism results in the poverty of an entire society. By comparison, free market capitalism has lifted the highest number of people out of poverty in human history. Corruption under communism. Because of lack of goods and services, corruption and bribery become endemic under communism. Of course, corruption also exists in capitalist countries, but communism elevates it to a completely different, systemic, level. It's not what you know, but who you know. To function, in order to survive, you must have a network of connections, and pay bribes, for everything. Education may be for free, but there's no guarantee you'll ever get into your desired school's program, even if you have top marks. The state might have different plans for you, or for your child. But with good connections, and the timely delivery of a valuable gift to the school principal or party leader, anything is possible. Health care may be for free, but if you want your doctor to be sober for your surgery, better pay up. Paying bribes to doctors in cash or gold was common in the Eastern Bloc. I was even told how much I must pay by the doctor himself. Police are a special case, corrupt, enjoying their power immensely. Did you speed? Your choice is between a lesser bribe and much more expensive ticket. No court, no argument, no place to complain. Need anything from government employees? Good luck. Communists invented stamps of different sizes and shapes. To get your document, or permit, stamped, you must pay a bribe. Want a new book, new clothes, or a better piece of meat? Better know the saleswoman and be really nice to her. Your car has broken down and needs repair? Oh dear, now you're in real trouble. Leaving a car in a repair shop entails the risk of good, functioning, components in your car being secretly replaced by inferior, or non-functioning, ones. The good components will be sold or exchanged for other goods. This is how exchange markets work under communism. Due to lack of goods, everyone steals. We used to say, who is not stealing from the state is robbing his own family. Without connections, you will remain in a queue for a very long time. And finally, here's a truly delicious irony for you. Do you think communists care about the environment? I remember hills near chemical plants laid bare, denuded of vegetation by polluted air and acid rain from towns where heavy metals were produced, places where aluminum had poisoned the groundwater, cities where the haze from industrial smog was so thick you couldn't see through it, and it hung there for months, places where noxious compounds in the air forced residents to wear face masks. Naturally, there were environmental laws, all conveniently ignored, in the name of glorious socialism. The worst part is fear, of being arrested, of being tortured, of dying as a political prisoner in a prison, labor camp, or uranium mine, slow death from radiation poisoning, incarceration in an insane asylum. You have to be crazy to oppose the regime, or of the same thing happening to someone you love. Fear is the primary tool for keeping people silent and obedient. Those who do not comply are interrogated, tortured, intimidated, put under surveillance as MUKL, destined for liquidation, by the secret police, or just killed, quicker and much easier. Those political prostitutes called informers are everywhere, especially universities. They'll report everything you do or say. Forget about freedom of action, speech, or even thought. The party controls everything, and you voted for them, didn't you? Freedom is a fragile thing and is never more than one generation away from extinction. Those who have known freedom, then lost it, have never known it again. Ronald Reagan. How many people have been murdered in capitalist countries for not being supporters of capitalism? How many have been murdered by a capitalist state for being anti-capitalist? If we turn the questions around and ask how many have been murdered in communist countries, the answer is between 80 to 100 million, globally. We are currently in the second stage, destabilization, of the new green communism. Are we so gullible that we can be taken without one shot, as Khrushchev predicted? Have we all taken our, many, freedoms for granted? Are we prepared to gullibly give up those freedoms to those advocating socialism, or are we prepared to resist the tide of radical leftism? Socialism equals communism, and after reading this article, I hope you have no illusions about what it is or where it leads. Canadians will soon have the chance to demonstrate if, and how much, they treasure their freedom. Good luck, Canada.